It's day 192 of COVID-19 in Jamaica and 189 days since schools were closed because of the pandemic. Now the focus is on reopening, at the very least in a virtual environment. But is the system ready? Hello, I'm Damian Mitchell and thanks for joining us for this special Gleaner Editors Forum. Today, back to school and COVID-19. We're joined on Zoom by Jasford Gabriel. He's the president of the Jamaica Teachers Association. Linton Weir, president of the Jamaica Association of Principals and Vice Principals. Mitsie Harris Dillon is the interim president of the National Parent-Teacher Association of Jamaica. And Ree-Anna Robinson, PRO of the National Secondary Students Council. We also have Latoya Benjamin, assistant PRO of the National Parent-Teacher Association of Jamaica. So, guests, let's allow you 2 minutes then to make your opening statements. We were, in fact, expecting to have someone from the Ministry of Education, but none was available for this briefing. Let me begin then with you, President of the JTA, Mr. Jasford Gabriel, with your 2 minutes just to give your opening ideas, concerns at this point.
Thank you very much, Damian. Greetings to all my colleagues and members of the panel and all those who are listening. What a time it is in education. The UNICEF study would have confirmed that the global pandemic would have affected education in a way that it has never done before. It's the greatest dislocation in history. And of course, we in Jamaica here would have been feeling the effects of this pandemic. As to whether we are ready, we would not be ready at this point in time to treat with all the issues that would have come out of the pandemic. And so school, as we all know, would have been already delayed, and the October 5 now, more and more seem to be going to the virtual space. And so these are issues that we must be contending with as we move forward. Some of the challenges and concerns that immediately arise. Internet connectivity. We have always, from the very beginning, been making the point that we need to invest in broadband internet connectivity right across the country, especially in the rural parts. And the truth is, successive governments would have dragged their feet as far as this issue is concerned, and it has caught up with us now. Despite the fact that a lot of training has gone on, our teachers have been exposed to a lot of training and are far more competent in terms of managing the learning management systems and so on, and are eager to display some of the new skills that they would have garnered. We have more and more of our students and teachers that are acquiring gadgets. And of course, the administrators, they have done a fantastic job working with their team just to fix up the physical plans and to make sure we have the social distancing, the sanitization, the temperature checks, additional space, and so on. The challenge is with all of this, it may mean that we have the plans ready, but there is nobody to attend physical space. And so it brings into sharp focus now the importance of having the connectivity right across the country.
Hold that point, Mr. Gabriel. We're going to be coming back to you quite shortly with some of these issues that you have raised. But let's allow Mr. Linton Weir to come in here with his opening 2 minutes. Mr. Weir?
It is the very first time in the history of our education in Jamaica we would have seen where school would have been scheduled to open on the 7th of September. And this time around, we were not able to open on the 7th. So here it is, we are now in the month of October, we are still not there as it relates to physical school. So the pandemic that we have been faced with is a very, very serious one. And this pandemic has really pushed us. And it has now pushed us to move into another space, where we can facilitate our classes online. But while we try to facilitate our classes online, we are having serious problems. And some of the problems that we are having outlined to by Jasper Gabriel here is that we would have seen a situation as it relates to bandwidth, instrument for our teachers and our students. So we are faced with a number of challenges, and as we try to navigate our way, we will have to try as best as possible to solve the different problems as we are faced with them, because it is very important that we educate the nation's children. But for us to educate the nation's children in an effective and efficient way, then it means that the different infrastructures will have to be in place. Yes, we have been doing some work where the physical plant is concerned, but while the physical plant is ready, we will not be able to have teaching and learning there simply because of what we have been experiencing. So we will now have to shift gear to provide all the instruments, all the different devices so that we can activate effectively teaching and learning using the online modality.
All right, we'll come back to some of those issues, of course, but let's turn now to the student in the group. Ree-Anna Robinson is the PRO of the National Students Council. Ree-Anna, your 2 minutes.
As you all know, it was mentioned earlier that it is day 189 since schools had closed in March. I think that is, wow, like we've never experienced anything like that before. And this pandemic has actually caused us to show how truly resilient this group of students are in this time. It has shown how creative we had to become, how innovative we had to become, how we had to pull on each other to help each other to make it through these times. Also, I'd like to note that the ministry has put in place so many different things, different mechanisms in tackling the challenges that we have had and that was presented to us in the previous school year. It didn't end so well for some persons with regards to the completion of certain things, with regards to their internet connectivity, procurement of a device. Many students had that as an issue. Even now, some schools have begun virtually and they are experiencing some challenges with regards to their device efficiency, internet connectivity. So right now, the council really believes that we're not ready to be back in the physical space just as yet. And right now, the country needs to be focused on ensuring that as many students as possible have access to a device and access to the internet. And we also believe that the internet connectivity, it has become an essential service now. We're moving into the fourth industrial revolution. They need to expand the reach of the internet service so that as many students as possible are able to benefit from that. And so nobody is left disenfranchised. So that is the main goal right now that we believe that should be focused on. So yes, and in addition to that, students have to hold themselves accountable in times like these, where we are now at home learning virtually. We must hold ourselves accountable to ensure that we complete everything that is necessary, and teachers and administrations need to also hold themselves accountable. Similar to how we as students, we have certain rules put in place for us in the virtual classroom. Teachers also need to have specific guidelines that they must follow with regards to how they conduct their teaching. They need to be held accountable with regards to how efficient their teaching is done. So those are the concerns that we really have. There are more concerns, but those are the major ones with regards to this. And some schools have started the school year. We're looking forward to the start of the school year. Students have expressed to us that they're excited to start school actually, but they want to start school in a comfortable space. They want to go back to school physically safely. That's the number one thing. And on the virtual platforms, they want to ensure that they're able to learn efficiently, that the teaching process is effective, and they want to be able to have their classes throughout the day without the internet dropping in the middle of the day.
Well, hold on to those points. Hold on to those points, Ree-Anna. We certainly will be picking up on a lot of these issues. So far, we've heard a lot about the matter of internet connectivity. But let's go then to Mitsie Harris Dillon, who is the interim president of the National Parent-Teacher Association, for her opening 2 minutes.
It is indeed an extremely critical time in the lives of all Jamaicans. COVID-19 is still a novel virus. We have been trying to learn many different ways on how to handle it, how to deal with it. We have been having concerns coming from our parents in particular as it relates to the internet connectivity issue that has been raised, the challenges of our students, so many of our students, more than half our student population not having any access to devices at all and or the internet. And some of them are actually without electricity. I mean, so many challenges, so many persons in the rural communities having issues in terms of accessing paperwork. And we know that our schools and our administrators have been coming on board with alumni associations and member PTAs to find creative ways to get papers printed and distributed. Even in the midst of this pandemic, we are trying our best. We have been trying our best to assist our children so that they are not disenfranchised within the education system. We look too at the major loss of jobs. We're looking at the tourism industry where almost 500,000 persons, their jobs have been impacted. We're looking at the restaurant industry. People have been losing jobs. Others have been taking pay cuts. And in the face of rising costs, looking at the whole sanitation protocols and what that brings, the added cost it brings to bear on businesses, on schools, on families, the rising cost of foods. And at the same time, we are putting ourselves in a position to prepare our students for back to school. And here we are in a second wave of the virus that is impacting us even more greatly now than it did a few months ago.
Very well. Latoya Benjamin, can I come to you now, Latoya, for your opening 2 minutes?
Okay, the major concern for me, I am a teacher. So I'm looking at this as on a teacher's perspective. Us as teachers, are we ready? Somewhat. We have been going to workshops and seminars. Also, we're looking at equipment. A lot of teachers across Jamaica don't have laptops. They don't have the equipment to start school also. So just as of the pandemic has been affecting teachers all over. So I believe that teachers need to get more psychosocial, workshops on how to deal with the pandemic also. We look at a lot of parents have lost their jobs. Teachers are also affected by this. Teachers have students and everything that is affecting parents and others, it is affecting the teachers also. So one of the things that going back to school, starting up school for October the 5th, I am looking at, are we equipped for the virtual learning? Yes, we have things in place, but how many teachers have the equipment to start for the new school year?
Well, a very good note on which to segue to Mr. Jasford Gabriel. He's the president of the JTA, and Mr. Linton Weir, who is the president of the Association of Principals and Vice Principals. They sit as part of the e-COVID committee, which was established by the Ministry of Education. So let me bring that question to you then, Mr. Gabriel. What is the focus in respect of teachers and getting them equipped as part of the mandate under this e-COVID committee?
All right, so that COVID-19 task force would not have met yet. That's going to be tomorrow for that first meeting late in the day, and we would have loved if this emergency was dealt with earlier. But having said that, I'm confident that all our teachers would have had their devices before the start of October 5. The 2017 heads of agreement that was signed between the Ministry of Finance and the JT and the government would have catered to all teachers receiving tablets. It took a while, but the rollout is going on, and teachers across the country are receiving their devices, and therefore should be able to have that resource in terms of supporting the teaching and learning process. The ministry has also committed to providing resources, devices for teachers who did not qualify as well. And as we know, much support is being given to students who are on par. We do have concerns with other students who are in the system, not on par, but they need devices as well. But it's going to take us back to the schools are well equipped and the teachers are trained. It will amount to almost zero if there is no connectivity. And the UNICEF study highlighted the main concern that I'm raising. We have about 67%, which is over 400,000 students. I don't know if we can wrap our minds around that, who did not have any reliable connectivity after they closed down. And it cannot be that we are entering into a similar kind of scenario. So we've been pressing the government in terms of just advising us as to the progress that has been made, especially in the rural parts, to ensure that we will have some kind of connectivity in order to continue with the teaching and learning process.
Well, can I tell you, Mr. Gabriel, that just this morning, the Minister of Education, Fable Williams, was on Power 106 FM, and she reported that there are 361 schools with good internet connectivity, 399 poor internet connectivity, and 220 have no connectivity. She said that the ministry is seeking to ensure that at least another 100 schools will soon be fitted with internet and connectivity capabilities. But Mr. Weir, let me come to you. How many of your teachers and principals would be impacted or are prepared, I beg your pardon, for school come October 5?
In answering your question, Damien, Mr. Gabriel would have made mention that teachers would have received laptops through the Ministry of Education. Not all of our teachers have received, not laptops, tablets rather. Not all of our teachers have received tablets as yet. There are still some of our teachers to receive tablets.
Well, the minister reported this morning that there are 3 parishes to go. So you'd have gone.
But the point I want to make here is that when the heads of agreements were put together for teachers to receive their tablets, I think at that time it would have been quite fine for our teachers to have received the tablets at that time. But the heads of agreement, when it was put together, we were not in a pandemic. No, we find ourselves in a pandemic where all the nation's children will have to be entertained. And I think we will have to take a closer look to later on the tablets that the teachers have received, because I think, Mr. Gabriel, later on we probably will have to do an upgrade, moving from tablets to laptop for our teachers as well. And while we're looking at tablets and laptops for students too, let us take a closer look as it relates to our students, because here it is, principals have been charged with the responsibility to do the procurement of the laptop for students in grade 10 to grade 13. And we are having a serious challenge right now in procuring these devices. And the challenge that we're having in procuring these devices right now is that the world is short of laptops right now. And the ministry have downloaded the information to schools. So it is not the ministry that is procuring these equipment. It is schools that are doing their own procurement themselves. And there are serious shortages of laptops right across the world right now. So it is taking some amount of time to procure these devices. So even if we should start school on the 5th of October, those students who we were permitted to provide with tablets, they will not be able to get their tablets on the 5th of October. Not too sure when we will be able to obtain such. So when you look at it close up, it's a lot of problems that we are still faced with. And just to share with you too, some of us would have started our online classes for our exams group on Monday. Well, my school, we have started, and quite a number of our schools in our association would have started on Monday as well. We recognize that this time around, it is much better than when our students had returned to us on the 5th of June in terms of the number of students who are connected. Yes. So I must give credit to our parents in terms of procurement and purchasing and providing the different equipment for our students. So I'm very, very thankful for that. I'm very, very happy that our parents have moved into that direction. But while our parents have moved into that direction, we are going to need greater support, greater help from government as it relates to providing the resources, not just for students, but for teachers as well. And as we look at providing materials for teachers, we also need to look close up to, Mr. Gabriel, I know this year is one of the years that you will be communicating with the government as it relates to salary increase for our teachers. And we will now have to also look close up as it relates to internet provision for our teachers, because our teachers will have to operate within their own space. And while they operate within their own space, then it cannot be their cost for all of these different things as well. And I think our BST will have to increase so that our teachers will be able to put themselves in the position to make provision for their classes as it relates to internet connectivity devices and the different capital cost that is going to be injected here.
Let me bring in Ree-Anna here, Mr. Weir. Ree-Anna, how are you coping?
Students have expressed the concerns with regards to them having no devices or devices that aren't compatible with the software that they have to use for virtual schooling. I think that point is what has really alarmed me, in the fact that you have a device, but it's not efficient in getting what you need to get done. That is a very large concern that has been brought to my attention. Also, as I mentioned earlier with internet connectivity, the students in rural parishes have really suffered a lot with regards to this. This has become an essential service. We now believe as the council that they need to now create a public entity so that these students can now be provided with these telecommunications through something that is much more affordable and something that would be, the reach would be expanded. So that is where we're looking towards. That is what we expect from the government in times to come.
So then, Mitsie, what is on your wish list?
Okay, one of the first things that is on our wish list is that we had asked the ministry to arrange for some waivers on duties for laptops, tablets, and smartphones to help our parents as it relates to making these purchases in preparation for our children to join school come October in the virtual space. We know it's not going to happen physically for now because things are out of hand. But one of the first things is that we need some waivers. This will go a far way in assisting our parents in affording these devices, preparing our students to start back school on a very burdened pocket because it's very difficult. And we want the same to benefit our teachers as well, for those who would actually have to be purchasing their own, because we understand that the rollout is not yet complete. Is it that all our teachers will be benefiting from these tablets? And as parents, how do they manage the teaching process while managing their own children in virtual school? I mean, there is a lot that we want. One is that we want a delay in the physical reopening of schools.
From October, well, the virtual,
That we had preferred it to be pushed back to January 2021. Because
so let me understand you clearly. You're saying you would wish if virtual classes do not begin on October 5?
Not virtual classes, the physical reopening.
Meaning the blended learning with virtual and physical.
Just the physical aspect of it, because the plan was that we would have opened virtually for September and physically for October.
And it has since been changed to a blended approach for October 5. But I'm hearing the ministry saying that it's likely to be strictly virtual for October 5.
It would have to be strictly virtual, because based on what we see happening in our own country with this second wave and the lack of personal responsibility on the part of some persons, it is now impacting others. The testing that is going on by the Ministry of Health, the delay in the results coming forward, a lot of backlog being cleared up. We have not yet seen the true picture of the impact right now in terms of the number of positive cases. So safety is a major concern for our parents in terms of even sending out our children right now. And given transportation, public transportation, no, our parents are not really prepared.
Here's a question coming in from Twitter. I think Mr. Weir may be best able to answer this one. It's coming from Briella Marley YP, and she's asking what provisions are being made for those children who will be left behind, especially those in deep rural communities.
That is a very, very good question, Damien. As I would have shared earlier, that there are some schools like mine that have started communication with our students who will be writing exams. Those are the grade 11 students. We are cognizant of the fact that not all of our students are currently online for various reasons. There are some who are not online because they do not have the devices. There are some who are not online because there's no connectivity where internet is concerned. Some of the plans that we have, and this morning I would have communicated before I came on, I would have communicated with some of our principals in different schools as it relates to that same particular question. And what we have intended to do is to photocopy materials, is to make materials available. Those materials that are going to be photocopied and are going to be made available, those materials will have to be left at central points for students to pick up outside of those areas that we will not be able to take material. It is difficult time, it is very, very tough time. And all of us will have to knock heads together to provide some of the answers, to provide some of the solutions as it relates to the way forward for our students, because we are quite knowledgeable that the internet is not available all over. I would love to see, though, that these areas, real deep rural areas in Jamaica, that the Ministry of Education, along with the government of Jamaica, would make provision as it relates to, let us say, for example, a bus moving into these areas with connectivity, so that individuals within these rural parts will be able to log on. So I think these are some of the things that the ministry will have to also look at. So while as principals, we try to navigate and try to put together answers and solutions by photocopying material, leaving them at central points, have them, shared by dropping them off, it also means too that the government will have to jump on, come on board and have the internet in these areas, whether you're going to use bus circulation or whatever means for the students to get the information, because it's a reality.
Well, here's another question, and I think this may be for you again, Mr. Weir. My question is, and this is coming from Hard Heart Smith, why must we pay school fee for online learning? This does not make sense. Some parents are still out of a job, and the virus at the school, and the school system expect you to pay so much more to do online classes. Why?
No, you see, the thing about it is that before the start of the school year, we would have been making preparation for the start of the school year. While we were making preparation for the start of the school year, parents would have been doing their registration and would have been paying their fees. Once the fees are paid, the fees are being utilized in providing the different resources, whether it is for the physical space itself or whether it is for online platform as well. The question being asked, if the students is going to be online, why should they be paid? We also need to be mindful too that the schools are making provision and investment in getting our students to be able to access online teaching and learning. Let us take, for example, my school right now. We had a serious internet challenge, and while we were there thinking about stretching the bandwidth itself, we brought in some engineers to work with us. We recognized that it was not a bandwidth issue, but it was a connectivity issue in terms of the wiring that was utilized within our institution. Now we're working on that to employ the wires that are supposed to be used outdoors, because what had happened is that some of our engineers would have used indoor wires outside, and these are some of the different things. So as we speak, we have engineers working on our physical plan to ensure that we will be able to activate and able to communicate from school. While we're having online classes now, there are some of our teachers right now at our school, in our computer labs, teaching from our computer lab for our students. So I want to make it abundantly clear to our parents and our students that as it relates to the school fee is being utilized to activate the whole business of teaching and learning. So it's not a situation wherein we're able to teach without having resources. We have to have the resources in terms of the fee to employ the different things so that the material can be out there to our students. And I want—
Well, hold that point. Hold that point, and let me pick up with Miss Benjamin, who is the assistant PRO for the National Parent Teacher Association. She is a teacher, and I heard the call being made earlier by Ree-Anna of the National Secondary Students Council for accountability from teachers. How do teachers plan to deliver this accountability to their students in the era of online learning amid COVID-19?
Okay, so we have been trained. We are in training on the different platforms right now, and we have been certified. Also, we are ensuring that we are equipped on the different scales to facilitate the students at the different level, as you heard the gentleman said just now. For students who are in special education, those who are at the higher level and those who are at the lower level, we are ensured, we have been trained, and some of us are trained in special education also, to ensure that all of these areas are fully covered. Accountability, ensure that students get positive feedback in a timely effort, and ensure that everything is on par. The child is the most important priority, the priority. Students learning is the priority right now for us as teachers. That is where we are at. We are ensuring that everything is on par, we are equipped, and also we have also things in place to ensure that our classes go the right way and students are complying to the instruction given also.
Well, let me ask Mr. Jasford Gabriel to comment on that. The matter of accountability for teachers and principals, the general administration of schools. How will you ensure that that happens from a union perspective, the JTA?
All right, so Damien, just after the closure of schools, accountability instruments were already set up in terms of how we engage our teachers online in that era. The school administrators working with their middle management teams are generally quite efficient in ensuring that teachers are held accountable. Part of that accountability tool would have ensured that it would indicate the different platforms that the teachers are using, whether it is Schoology, WhatsApp, Zoom, whatever it is, how many students would have been reached, to what extent did planning take place, how were the evaluation criteria and so on met. And so the accountability systems were in place, and I'm sure those will be improved on because additional training would have been offered to middle managers and school leaders as far as the accountability system is concerned. Remember as well that the Ministry of Education has invested in the Google G Suite platform for all schools. That's something that the ministry will be paying for. So schools are setting up their virtual spaces, the classroom, and so on. And part of that will also ensure accountability to the extent that there is one main platform now that is going to be used across the country. And we're also using that in terms of grades and so on. As it is now, we would have distributed close to 20,000 tablets.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you very well, Mr. Gabriel. You seem to be dropping out. Are you saying that you've distributed close to 20,000 tablets?
Already, based on the negotiated, that these tablets should have been distributed long ago. We had to be putting a lot of pressure on the government, so that they should have been out of the system. We got them in lieu of payment and so on. So I'm making a point that the tablets are out there, the teachers are getting the training, the schools are being fixed. You mentioned in terms of schools and how much additional support has been given in terms of internet service. Has it really dawned on us yet that we will not be streaming lessons from the schools? But based on what is happening now and the trend we are seeing with the COVID pandemic, we are going strictly virtual. And the truth is, investment ought to be made. We must hold the communication giants. The government must, to a higher level of accountability and a greater supply, especially in the rural parts, because we'll be talking a lot, just like Linton was saying. Otherwise, we'll be talking a lot about ready TV and radio and dropping off hard copies and kits, as it were in the era after March 12th. That to me is totally unacceptable. And the truth is, we have just been dancing around the main issue. We need to make sure that we have connectivity across the country. These are low-hanging fruits. Some of the things, the schools are making contacts with their different alumni groups. Private sector entities are coming on. Tablets and so on will be gone. Trading. These are the lower-hanging things. The major issue is the one of the connectivity, especially the rural parts. And our students continue to be out of the loop.
So am I hearing you're saying that you are dissatisfied with the progress since March 10?
Most definitely. And we would have been making the call in terms of, please give us the status in terms of how we are progressing with broadband connectivity across the country. If you look on the study showed that only 32% that had good connectivity. That is 200 out of 600,000 students, 200,000 roughly out of 600,000. Yes. It's only reasonable that we be advised now in terms of the communities that have been upgraded, how many more communities and students and teachers would have the kind of connectivity that would ensure that we continue to advance the curriculum. It's a matter of emergency.
We're running fast out of time for this program, but here's a question coming in on Facebook for, I guess you, Mr. Weir, again. It's from Sandra Douglas. She's saying that the cloth branded masks that are sold by schools, they aren't breathable for wearing for extended periods. And so she's asking, why not go with a surgical mask that we can all inhale and exhale through?
Very good question, Damien. As it relates to the branded mask, yes, we recognize that students have been complaining about the branded mask. The reason why we put branded masks is to ensure that we have uniformity in our school. While we want to have uniformity in our school, we would have made it abundantly clear to our students and to our teachers too, and to those who transact business with us, that the marked mask is that our teachers, we ask our teachers from time to time to allow our students to have break in terms of removing their mask, putting back their mask, that sort of thing. Because if we were supposed to invest, Damien, in the surgical mask, that by itself is a one-use mask. The other masks are reusable. They are able to wash them, they are able to iron them and that sort of thing. But so it is going to be very, very important for our teachers and our students to work together, where we are going to have that time slot where we are going to say to our teachers and our students, you can now remove, you can take a breather, you can put back your mask on. But in terms of cost effectiveness, it is more cost effective to have the branded mask because it is reusable. The surgical mask is a single use that is going to attract a lot of cost. And I want to make it abundantly clear here, Damien, that when it comes down to school, it is also very, very important for us to have that sort of a uniformity, but we must employ wisdom in terms of us utilizing our masks as best as is possible.
Mitsie Harris Dillon, let me come back to you because the issue of grading was a very poignant one in the last school year. Is there any concern from parents in respect of a grading system amid COVID and schooling?
There have been some concerns. There were concerns during the last period, the last term, as to the grading system, but we were advised by the ministry that steps had been taken to ensure that this information is captured by each school. And as you would have heard, Mr. Weir mentioned earlier, not too long ago, that these systems are in place. What is going to happen though is that for those children who are not being reached and are not able to complete their assignments or their work, in keeping with what is set out in the curriculums, and there is going to be a challenge. So consideration would have to be given to those students as it relates to learning gaps and what measures are going to be put in place to bring them back up to speed, as we would expect for all of our other children, even those that are learning virtually. There are going to be some learning gaps.
We're almost out of time, so let me just go back to allow you your closing or parting words. Mr. Weir, what now for school amid COVID-19?
Well, tomorrow is going to be a very, very big day, because tomorrow the task force we will be having our first meeting with the Minister of Education. And I think coming out, going into that meeting, we'll be able to make some decisions. So the public will know quite, after tomorrow, what will happen. We have been looking at October 5th. We're not too sure if that is going to become a reality, but after tomorrow's meeting, we'll be able to share that information.
Ree-Anna, what now as we move into school amid the COVID pandemic?
Well, we still have a few concerns, especially after some of the comments were made today with regards to some of the challenges that we face, especially with assessment. Students have really been wondering what's going to be taking place with assessments. They have expressed that they would prefer to be in a physical space for assessments, because there are many challenges that come with doing a test in a virtual platform. You have bandwidth speed, as I spoke about earlier. You have the computer efficiency. You have the fact that the testing is done in a sequence. So normally it's done in a sequence. So if you skip a question, you have to go through all the questions that you previously completed to reach back to that question. So things like that, they're very concerned with regards to how testing is going to be done. Also, the matter of school fees that was raised earlier. There are some schools that have raised their fees drastically. And the thing is, when you explain the breakdown of where the fees are going, are you explaining that to the students? Are you communicating that to the students? It is very important that the students are brought in to the communication process. Communication is extremely important, especially in a time like this. Transparency is important, because the students are the ones being taught. So I think it's very important that in the evaluation process, the students need to be brought into that to also evaluate the effectiveness and the efficiency of the teaching that they are receiving.
Very well. You've taken away 30 seconds from Latoya Benjamin, the PRO of the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica. Latoya, what now as we head into COVID and education, back to school?
Well, us as teachers, we are preparing and ourselves for the October 5th deadline. And to answer Ree-Anna, we're looking at different methods of assessing the students the best way we can. As I said, accountability, of course, and we are in training now. So as for me as a teacher, I have found different methods of assessing my students which work for them and giving them positive feedback. So that is where we are headed. Teachers are being trained, and we are coming together, collaborating together to see the best way we can help our students.
Mitsie Harris Dillon, what now as we head into school come October 5?
We continue to encourage our parents to do the best that they can to get our students as prepared as possible for the restart of school. For those who have already started school that require the support of our parents in the virtual learning process while we have the work from home issues to deal with. I commend you all. I commend all our parents. We have really been trying. So many of us have been struggling in the face of so much job loss and job cuts. We are appealing to the powers that be to really look into introducing the waivers that we need to assist us with some of the costs associated with preparation for back to school. And we also would like to get some psychosocial support, not only for our teachers, but for our parents as well. Families are going through a tough time, but we are doing the best that we can.
Thank you very much. And Jasford Gabriel, president of the JTA, if we must succeed, then
collaboration must be the watchword. This is an era that calls for a lot of courage and collaboration. That's the watchword. We must remind ourselves that education is the most powerful weapon that we can use to change the world, as the great Nelson Mandela says. And so each of us must make the necessary sacrifices and collaborate as much as possible so that we can seek to secure the education of our nation.
Thank you very much. And that's where we end this Editors Forum, looking at COVID and back to school in Jamaica. Jasford Gabriel, the president of the Jamaica Teachers Association, joined us on Zoom. So too did Linton Weir, president of the Association of Principals and Vice Principals, Mitsie Harris Dillon, the interim president of the National Parent-Teacher Association of Jamaica, as well as Ree-Anna Robinson, PRO of the National Secondary Students Council, and Latoya Benjamin, assistant PRO of the National Parent-Teacher Association of Jamaica. I'm Damian Mitchell. Thanks for watching.